Welcome into episode 215 of the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. The Sources Say podcast is presented by our good friends at Justice Dental. You can make an appointment at one of two Lexington locations. That's on Wellington Way and Blazer Parkway. Now is a great time to schedule your dental cleaning. Remember that regular dental appointments are important for your overall health. You can learn more and make an appointment at justicedental.com. Dr. Justice and Dr. Thompson look forward to seeing you soon. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very happy to be joined once again by Shawn Smith of Go Big Blue Country. Shawn, how the heck are you?
I am fantastic, Jack. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there. It appears you are on the road. It says you're scouting a little bit for your team. We're in the heat of basketball season. So you are in the heat of your basketball season. Kentucky is in the heat of its basketball season. We're going to be previewing the Kentucky State exhibition game on Thursday. What we liked specifically about Kentucky's 56-38 win over Missouri Western in the first exhibition game. What went well, what didn't, why the offense struggled a little bit, why the defense turned heads, individual standouts, all that good stuff. But Shawn, I want to start the show. Obviously, the kind of big news today, the UK has not officially announced yet, but a couple of different people are putting it out there, and Damian, he put it on his own personal private social media. I believe it was on a Snapchat page, but the news that Damian lost his dad very unexpectedly, and it's really, really tough to hear. I got, fairly close with Damian's dad during the recruiting process, talked to him a little bit leading up to his commitment. And then, obviously since then, and, just catching up with him about, the draft decision, was he going to enter the transfer portal? All the buzz that comes with every Kentucky basketball player every offseason. Talked to him quite a bit, and he was always very, very good to me. Incredible guy. Always made me laugh. Shawn, Southern guy from Texas, owns a big old truck and talks about, owning a ranch and, horseback riding and all those good things. So we always had a bunch of awesome talks, and he was always very, very good to me. So I just wanted to start the show and just give my prayers out to Damian and his family. Just absolutely tragic news. I know that they were very, very, very close, talking to just a bunch of different people and knowing their story and their situation, Shawn. They were like best friends, like brothers. I talked to Kaysen's dad earlier today. Kaysen and Damian are cousins, and Kaysen's dad was pretty shaken up too. Just really difficult day for Damian and his family, and I just wanted to make sure that we started this show off and give the things that actually matter, and that clearly matters infinitely more than any exhibition game or even the basketball season as a whole.
It does. Very, very sad news. I didn't know about it until you texted me about an hour ago and told me, and it shocked me. So, yes, a super nice guy. I know you and I stood with him in Memphis and had a conversation with him at the Iverson Classic, and that's the first time I'd ever been around him and his personality and stuff. He was a really funny, outgoing person, and I hate this for Damian. My thoughts and prayers are with Damian, his family, and definitely probably shaking up the entire Kentucky basketball team, honestly.
Yeah. One thing I really appreciate about him, he was always just really realistic about Damian, just incredible, role model for him and to help with decision making and things like that. Never wanted to rush the process, always knew who Damian was and the potential side of things. He always knew, he's going to be in the NBA one day. He's going to, that potential is going to turn into production at some point. We are in no rush whatsoever to rush him through this process, push him to the NBA. Things didn't go as planned in year one. They didn't, push him to, hit the transfer portal and go somewhere else where he would get more minutes and shots and a bigger opportunity. They were always very, his dad was always very supportive of him and his basketball journey, just his growth and just understanding, who he is as a basketball player and just an incredible role model. Somebody that I just had infinite amount of respect for and just really, taking it hard, just understanding, the impact that he made and the relationship they had. So again, prayers go out to Damian and his family. I know it's a tough day, and I mean the whole basketball team. I mean, goodness gracious, it just feels like every year there's a new something that we have to talk about. The Terrence Clark tragedy, last year, 2 years ago, and it feels like every year, Shawn, there's something new, and it's just really Ben Jordan. It's all of it. So I hate to have to do this, but it's life.
It's a gut punch every single time, because it's one of those things that you don't expect. And like I said, prayers for Damian, and we know that team will put their arms around him. That coaching staff will put their arms around him and help him get through this. But just awful news.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's try to be turn this as positively as possible, and break down the game as best we can, and talk a little bit about some positive stuff with the basketball game coming up on Thursday, and different takeaways from Sunday night's game. Kentucky wins 56-38. Shawn, not a pretty performance in any stretch of the imagination. It was started out very, very slow, finished slow for the offense. Some positive certainly things to take away. CJ Frederick leading the way, 15 points, 5 of 8 shooting, 4 of 6 from 3. Cal called him a special player after the game and didn't even bring up his shooting. And I thought that was a really impressive thing. Highlighted his passing, highlighted his defense, and decision-making. We've talked on the show several times that he just doesn't turn the ball over, and really always tries to make the right reads and do the right thing with the ball in his hands. So definitely he was the biggest standout for the Cats. Jacob Toppin did a lot of really impressive things. 10 points for him, 4 of 9 shooting, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, but 2 steals as well in a team high 32 minutes. So those were easily the 2 biggest standouts. And then obviously off the bench, Ugonna Onyenso, 5 blocks. He follows up with what we really liked from him in the blue-white game, follows it up with another 5-block performance. He told me that he wanted to be the best shot blocker in college basketball. He's certainly on his way. He certainly looks the part. So offensively, not a whole lot of positive takeaway, but there are a couple things to like and point out.
There is, and it's an offense that will look significantly better when the National Player of the Year is inserted in there, because they'll get a lot of those garbage baskets off offensive rebounds. He'll create some space for some other guys with the number of bodies that he'll occupy in the paint. So I thought there were still some good things. I thought CJ Frederick coming out there shooting the ball the way he did, that's obviously an important takeaway. Jacob Toppin shooting some turnaround jumpers late in the shot clock, showing the ability to go get his own. I think that's a big step up from last season. I thought Cason Wallace missed some shots that he will start to hit and stuff as the season gets going here over the next few weeks. But the attention to detail on the defensive end, that's the way you wanted to see Kentucky defend an opponent of that caliber and things like that. And I thought Cason was the tone setter on that end of the floor as well. So there were some good things hidden inside of a pretty boring 56-38 win. Like I know there were some people in the Bahamas, everybody's talking, oh, this team's great, this team's great. And then it comes down to the first exhibition, and I see some people going, this team's not going to be very good. Like, don't overreact to the first exhibition. We know that this team will end up being okay, and I expect them to look much better on Thursday. But there were some good things that we have to talk about from Sunday night.
So statistically, I guess, and historically speaking, it was the third fewest points ever scored in an exhibition game for Kentucky, and the fewest overall since 1948, Shawn, which was a matchup against the Phillips Oilers when UK scored 50 points in an outdoor game played at Stoll Field, of all places. Apparently, somebody in the comment section, I think on our YouTube page during our rapid reaction video, brought up that stat and said that it was the Phillips Oilers was something to do with the 1948 Olympics, and that it was a Olympic team, kind of a professional put together team going into the Olympics. So it was actually pretty solid competition, all things considered. That you can't say the same about the Missouri Western Griffins necessarily, but still cool historical fact there. As disappointing as that was, team defense was very impressive. I believe it was the team's fewest points allowed in an exhibition game since UK allowed 28 points against Transylvania back in 2012, and we know how that season ended, Shawn. So very, very, very good things defensively, but not so much to be happy about offensively.
No, there's not a ton to be happy with offensively. Obviously, John Calipari did say just prior to that, like a week ago, that the offense was ahead of schedule, and then it didn't look ahead of schedule when it got to Sunday night. But I thought the defense was a big takeaway for me. And as soon as Kaysen entered the game, Kentucky got significantly better defensively. On the ball, off the ball, his impact, like he guarded the ball with the same intensity from the first second he was on the floor to the last second he was on the floor. He's going to draw the opposing team's best perimeter player every single night. And he has the ability to take somebody completely out of the game with a defensive effort. Like, that is a game changer. When Xavier Wheeler's healthy, he can pressure 94 feet and things like that. Like, this is going to be a very good defensive team in the backcourt, and I think it's also going to be a very good defensive team in the front court, which then put the two together, and you got an elite defensive team in Kentucky. And I think that's where they're going to be elite at, is on the defensive end. You mentioned those blocks on Yinso. If that is his role that he can just buy into and just do that one thing, you don't want to pigeonhole players, but when you're a young piece that's trying to kind of find their way in college basketball and build some consistency and some confidence, he knows that that's the one thing that he can do, and he's going to do it very well. His instincts and stuff off his feet the other night were very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that is a role that, we've talked about this on the past. Cal is a guy that if you have one niche, if you have one thing that's kind of your calling card, that there's nobody else on the floor better than you at, Oscar rebounding, Xavier is a playmaker, Kellen Grady is a shooter, you go down the list, the specialty players always find their way onto the floor. And that is something. And if you go back to what Cal has been saying all offseason, the comments, if you listen really closely, he has brought up shot blocking almost constantly. Every time there's a microphone put in front of his face, he has brought up shot blocking as the difference maker and game changer for teams in terms of national title contenders, and some of the teams that he has had in the past that have struggled and haven't been able to go on runs to the Final Four. The difference between those and the ones that have been elite shot blocking. He has gone out of his way several times to mention that. And if you have a player of his caliber who blocks the shots the way Ugonna does, it kind of makes you think, we keep going back and forth. Is he going to have a role on this team? What will his role be? Are they going to try to hold him out and, have him be one of the last guys coming off the bench? When you kind of put Cal's comments together with what we're seeing with our own two eyes with Ugonna, it kind of makes you start to think that he's going to be pushing his way into the rotation. And, Shawn, I think it's also worth noting, we saw our first platoon rotation from Coach Cal for the first time in years. I mean, I don't know if he experimented a little bit early on after the 2014-15 year, Shawn, but that was my first time I can remember in a long time that we saw a complete 5 out, 5 in, and Ugo was included in that 5 out in that 5 in. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's Cal just getting creative, but I think it's worth noting. And
we know that was one of the things that they missed defensively a year ago, was that elite rim protection. And you've got it now. You've got a guy in him that can do those things. So to me, the ability to block those shots on the back end, it makes Kentucky even more elite defensively, because these guards like Kaysen Wallace, Xavier Wheeler, whoever it is, they have the ability to now pressure the basketball at an even more aggressive rate, because they know they got that rim protector on the back side of that defense. That's what it does, is that you don't have to be as conservative guarding the basketball. You can take some chances, because you can run these guys off the perimeter and into that length, and then you got transition opportunities the other way, which is another area that I think this team is going to be very good and elite in, especially when it comes to C.J. Frederick and Antonio Reeves on the floor together, running the floor. The way they stretch you out, Oscar Tshiebwe getting back with rim runs, you add an elite shot blocker to the equation, even if it's just for maybe, let's say, 11, 12 minutes a night. That's 11 to 12 minutes that you've got something that's protecting the rim, in addition to the ball hawks that you have on the ball defensively in these guards.
And I guess we need to, address the fact that Xavier did go down with an injury. Yeah. It appears that everything has gone well. First off, how about Cal and just kind of how forward he was after the game about what the injury was, and come out and said, yeah, it's the same thing that he dealt with before the blue-white game. He twisted his knee. I mean, usually it's a lower body extremity injury that you never get any actual context for what the injury is. We got an actual like diagnosis from Coach Cal. Yeah, it's a twisted knee, same thing that he did before the blue-white game where he missed a couple days of practice and then he ended up missing the blue-white game. So that was very refreshing. I love that side of things. And then since then, he went on radio with Alan Cutler and said he thought he was going to be fine, said that it's a short-term thing. I talked to, people around the program. They said no concerns whatsoever about it being, a long-term thing. However, he's probably going to miss Thursday's game against Kentucky State. I don't know what that means going into the regular season, but we talked about Cason Wallace. It's going to be time for Cason to kind of step up and see what he can be as that primary one, the primary lead guard there for a minute. The ball's going to be in his court, and Antonio Reeves, I talked to him today. He told me that he was very confident as a primary guard as well. He played that at Illinois State. So those are going to be your 2 point guard options outside of Adu Thero. How are you feeling about that position in the both short term and long term, assuming that things go as planned? He can come back soon.
Well, I think it's good that Cason's going to get those opportunities now, extended opportunities. I mean, obviously, you do not want someone to be injured and you want to be at full strength, but I think that getting those reps now is a big thing. And we also know that John Calipari has been prioritizing Cason at the one in these practices leading up to the season. So you would think that Kentucky could kind of go in here and not miss a beat offensively and especially defensively and stuff with Cason around the one. Adu Thero is probably going to get a lot more minutes in the second exhibition than what he did in the first exhibition due to Xavier being injured. But good news that it's not anything serious. And I noticed when Xavier walked off the floor the other day or when he got helped off the floor, he actually told Cal, he said, "I'm good." So that kind of I could kind of see him nod to him and say, I'm okay. Like it's still something, but it's not anything. I don't think it's anything serious. So that's definitely good news. But Cason getting those opportunities now, I think is big because we know these non-conference matchups, Michigan State, you go through and you play UCLA, Michigan, Gonzaga. They're going to need Cason at the one some. And I think that that's a guy that's going to look comfortable running that spot.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool. Cal said after the game when talking about Cason, said, yeah, look, Cason finished with 9 points, 3 of 10 shooting, 1 for 4 from 3, but he had 7 rebounds. He had 2 turnovers, which were admittedly on him, two absolute mistakes on him. But I liked seeing him play through those. He also adds 2 blocks and 2 steals in 29 minutes. Sean Cal singled him out and said this team needs more Cason Wallaces, that he wants all of his teams to have more Cason Wallaces. And that's what we said on this show time and time again. When he signed with Kentucky, that, leading up to this event, this season, the events that we saw him play in, we said over and over again that this is going to be a guy that Cal is obsessed with, a guy that he will really struggle to take off the floor because of everything that he does well. He said, look, he missed layups. He wasn't great shooting. Again, he was 3 for 10 from the field and 1 for 4 from 3, yet he still did so much other stuff to impact the game that Cal went out of his way to say, we need more guys like that. In fact, he said this is a man's game, and that's exactly what Cason is. I mean, it looks like a free safety back there on the floor. Cason's a guy who's going to play a lot of minutes this year for Coach Cal.
Yep, he is elite defensively. The missed layups and some of the shots, I mentioned that here in the opening, that I thought he missed some shots that he will definitely make here probably, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks from now. I think those shots start falling. Some of those ones in traffic, as he gets more comfortable, gets some more reps, and gets some game experience, I think those will start to fall. So I'm not concerned about that. And the reason that I like Cason so much, and we talked about this a moment ago, the moment he went on the floor, it was evident how much better Kentucky got defensively. It picked up the entire unit as a group defensively the moment he stepped foot on the floor. And I think that that's going to be something that you're going to get every single moment he's out there, is you're going to get an elite defender on the ball, an elite defender off the ball, and a guy that when he gets the ball, he has the ability to get a rebound and push, and he's so strong, he's going to be able to add something offensively as well. And then that we've seen that shot over the course of the Bahamas and some the blue-white game and stuff. He's going to knock down some open threes, and I love what he brings to this team offensively and defensively.
The other kind of backcourt mate that he's going to have, especially as we wait for Xavier Wheeler's return. Antonio Reeves, he's going to get some reps there. He played point guard at Illinois State. He said that he's very comfortable at that position. Our first time really seeing him struggle, Shawn. He was MVP of the Bahamas, MVP of the Blue-White game. I think he averaged 19 points a game in all 5 of those exhibition games. Really incredible stuff from him that we've seen thus far. He really struggled shooting the ball. 5 points, 2 of 7 shooting, 0 for 4 from 3, and then 1 for 2 from the line, which was surprising as well. Goose eggs everywhere else outside of 1 steal really didn't impact the game a whole lot, which is really different from anything that we've seen leading up to this point. I talked to him a little bit, and he said that he had some first game jitters, said that he was a little bit nervous at Rupp Arena. Said he said, I'll be honest, I was not expecting that many fans in the stands. And, he was like, I felt good by the end of the game, really just needed to knock off that rust. So I'm definitely not concerned about him as a scorer. I mean, we've seen him make shots. We've seen him kind of at his best. What he can be is that just flamethrower from deep and, that elite 3 level scorer. But it was interesting seeing him struggle and him, attribute that to some first game jitters.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not concerned about Kentucky putting up 56 in an exhibition, is because we know that Reeves is going to have his moments where he's going to go on a heater on his own. We know he's going to get more comfortable. The shots I was talking about that Kaysen missed, I feel like Kaysen missed 3 or 4 shots that he will hit here in a couple of weeks. You add Oscar Tshiebwe back to the mix. You get Xavier healthy. Like Kentucky offensively will be just fine. And I think that this is going to be a team that's going to be fun to watch on that end of the floor as well. We saw what they did in the Bahamas. We saw the way they looked in the Blue-White game. I kind of chalk up the 56 points to it's the first game against another opponent. It's in your building. What they did in the Bahamas was the Bahamas. This is now getting ready for the regular season. You're probably paying attention to detail on a lot of different areas. There was a lot going on, some nerves being in Rupp Arena. I look for Kentucky to have a much better offensive performance on Thursday night than what they did on Sunday night. But the way that they stayed true defensively and stayed connected on that end of the floor, I thought was very encouraging.
And on that note, Shawn, really interesting comments from Cal this week. He set a specific number for the amount of points that he wants this team to score this year. He said that this needs to be a team that scores 80 points per game. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, because only one Cal team in his entire existence here at Coach Cal is at Kentucky, his entire tenure here, only one team has surpassed that, and that was the Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo team, who averaged 70 or 85 points a game. A couple others have come close. Last year's team averaged 79.5 points per game. So it's not too far off from what that he was getting last year. And if you factor in the upgraded positions that you would hope to think that Kentucky has, it's not crazy to think about. But 80 points is a lot of points.
It's a lot of points. You're right. I think Oscar Tshiebwe hitting the offensive glass adds to that number. I think that gives Cal some confidence there, because we know Oscar's probably going to be accredited with 4 or 5 baskets a game that other guys just can't get, just because he's going to get 2 hands on a rebound and stick it in. I think that this team is going to shoot the 3 ball better than last year, especially with C.J. Frederick. I think Antonio Reeves, Kaysen Wallace has shown the ability to hit that shot. Jacob Toppin shown the ability to hit that shot. Even Adou Thiero, the times that we've seen him hitting the 3-point shot. So I think the pace that this team's going to play with, here's the other catch. Defensively, this team is going to turn you over with its backcourt and convert that in transition. I think that's another reason that John Calipari's thrown out that 80-point number. It's actually when Kentucky's defense that kind of fuels that number more so than what it was last year.
Yeah, and he used those 2 stats actually last year. He said that Kentucky averaged 14 offensive rebounds a game. Obviously, Oscar Tshiebwe was the reason for the majority of that, and that he said that's analytically the most efficient way to score points. He said if you get offensive rebounds, that's how you can really rack up those easy cleanup buckets. So you don't have that with Oscar Tshiebwe, but he did say we can't use that as an excuse. However long Oscar's out, you should still be able to get offensive. You should still be able to clean up down there against teams like Missouri Western. This should not have been a game where Kentucky only gets 8 offensive rebounds. And I mean, Kaysen Wallace had 1 of them. Jacob Toppin had 3 offensive rebounds, but nobody else had 1 over 1. So that needs to be cleaned up, and clearly a point of emphasis for Coach Cal. So that's analytically the most efficient way to score points. So that's clearly something that he's driving home in practice. And then he also brought up transition points. Kentucky averaged 24 points per game in transition last year. That's a lot of points in transition. That's an up-tempo, fast, quick moving. I mean, remembering that Tennessee game at home last year for Kentucky when they were just run and gun, they were knocking down shots. They were, moving, pushing the ball up. That was kind of the peak of last year's season. And I think that's kind of the vision for Coach Cal. That's what he's hoping for. He wants this to be a team that rebounds the ball very well on the offensive glass, and then he wants the tempo to be there too.
Yep, and I think that's definitely a realistic thing that this team can do. I think Oscar Tshiebwe running to the rim. I think these guards getting out and run the break in transition. Like I said, C.J. Frederick, Antonio Reeves, stretching you out defensively with the ability to hit the three. Like this is a team that's going to put up some points. Now the thing that I'm paying attention to, not as much maybe on Thursday, but when you get into next week and some of those exhibitions, and then definitely after champions, is I think there's some spots where you're paying attention to where does Kentucky go. One of it being who plays behind Oscar. Is it Lance? Is it Ugonna? I don't know. Like I think that Cal's going to be like there's two totally different players there, in Lance and Ugonna. So I think that's an interesting storyline to watch through the remainder of the exhibition schedule into Monday, and then into next week and into champions. Is exactly what does John Calipari want behind Oscar Tshiebwe when Oscar comes back?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest questions I had going into the exhibition. Seeing who would emerge out of those two. I thought Ugo was the guy. I think Lance did some cool things, but I think Ugonna first opportunity to show kind of what he is, and if he could be that guy, I think he did. So I think that's definitely something that I have my eye on going into Thursday as well.
Well, to me, Lance is a guy that he doesn't hurt you. You put him in, he's not going to hurt you, but Ugonna is a guy that I think can kind of take your ceiling to another level just because of what he can add defensively at the rim. So I think that's the decision that Cal has to make here. And when it comes down to it is which one do you need? Do you need a guy that you trust that's not going to make mistakes, that's going to do his job and set good screens, rebound his position? Or do you want to be elite defensively with the way you can pressure the basketball and switch some of these things 1 through 4? Like I think that this is a basketball team that's going to be able to switch 1 through 4. Jacob Toppin, all these guards, I think they're going to be able to jump switch some things on the perimeter. And then you throw a guy like Ugonna in there for, let's say, just a couple of times a game just to protect the rim, give Oscar a break. Then you mix in Lance how you need it. Like he has options. That's the one thing that I'll say is Cal's certainly not hurting for some options and stuff when it comes to rotation. Like he's got some tough decisions to make, but I think that's the decisions you want, especially with a good basketball team.
I guess we got to address a couple questions in here about what Cal said today, the statement, the video that he put out talking, about the season and this team. E70-ish says Cal is already saying we are no good right now. Why? Player of the year is back. When will he learn how to win in November? We didn't peak in March last year, and then Titanium Titan. Should we be worried about what Cal said and how they're not ready for those big games? Like we shouldn't expect to beat Gonzaga and Michigan and maybe Michigan State. Very interesting. I don't know if you saw what Cal said today. Really different than some of the preseason addresses that we've seen from him in the past, where usually it's I like this team. I'm ready. Let's enjoy the process, enjoy the ride. I'm ready. Rah rah. We're coming for number 9 this year. All that. A little different tone. He said, be patient with this team, understand that we might have to, take some early hits in November and December, which we don't typically hear from him.
And you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
So just really, really interesting. Curious your thoughts on just kind of the message that he sent out.
It's one of those things where I've also heard Cal say that he's excited about a team and then it not turn out to go very well.
Right.
So, like, I don't know where the middle ground is there. Like, is that John Calipari trying to kind of take some pressure off of his group? Is that John Calipari, in a sense, maybe challenging his group? I don't really know how to read it because we've been in this situation before and it's not played out the way Cal said it in, I mean, specifically the 2020 year. I remember him saying some encouraging things about that team, and it turned out the way that it did. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned, yes, because this is a schedule that's loaded with quad one opportunities in the non-conference in November and December. You want to win those as many as you can to kind of put yourself in a position to be a top 3, top 2 seed possibly, especially with a regional in Louisville and stuff. You want to take advantage of that and those opportunities, but I don't know. I want to see champions. That's where I'm looking at. Like, I think that Champions Classic game against Michigan State, that's where I'm not going to buy too much into what John Calipari's saying until I see this team in action against a quality basketball team, and I think that's our first opportunity, really.
Yeah. I mean, he said that the individual pieces, Shawn, are good enough. He said that I love the individual pieces that this team has, and it's about making sure the cohesiveness is there and kind of firing on all cylinders in that regard. So that interests me. What is it about this team right now that isn't meshing the way? I mean, it might just be injury. I mean, it very well could be.
What I was about to say. How much is it that the reigning National Player of the Year isn't in practice right now and getting these reps and going through things? And then you also have a Cousy Award finalist from a year ago and a guy that's on the watch list, one of the top point guards in the country statistically, that also is banged up right now. Like, how much does that play in to what you're doing because those were the two guys that we talked about all off season. I know I keep coming back to it. When you return your point guard and the numbers that Savier's put up the last couple of years in the Power Five, and then you return the reigning National Player of the Year, the 1 and the 5, two of the most important spots on the floor, and now they're not at practice, you're probably seeing some things differently than what they're actually going to be here in about 4 or 5 weeks. So maybe and that's where I'm wondering, like, is this just to take some pressure off of these other guys? Because it's forcing people into roles right now that probably are not going to be in those roles when you get into January.
And that's why I love so much Kaysen making the mistakes that he did as the lead guard. I mean, he was, dribbling the ball off of his leg and making, difficult passes that weren't necessary. That's exactly what I'm looking for, Shawn. That I want him to play through mistakes. I want him to figure his stuff out. Guys, even guys like Ugana, guys like Antonio Reeves, he hasn't been in the spotlight before. He doesn't know what it's like to play a big game in March like this. We know what we're going to get from, even guys like CJ, who, we haven't seen play in so long, and he started out the year really well. But, when the bright lights come, he played in the Big Ten at Iowa, and he did really, really good things there. I'm the younger guys, the guys that haven't been in this position, Chris Livingston, Kaysen Wallace, Antonio Reeves, Adu Thiero, Ugana, those guys, I think there's some real opportunity for them to play this year. I don't know if it's going to be all of them, but definitely some of them. You want to play through mistakes now so they're better for March. And going back to Connor Rigg and his statement, he's underselling them, so look better when they play well. I think it's a mix of what you said, Shawn, and what Connor said. I think they want to kind of, set the bar down just a little bit than what we've seen from him in the past, where we have seen the COVID year where he said, we got to do whatever it takes to make sure these games are played because this team's amazing, and it would be a disservice to not play those games when really it probably would have been better for all of us if we didn't have to see those games. I think he's underselling a little bit, taking the pressure off of the young guys while knowing that when they're all together, it's a really damn good team.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of going with what Connor's talking about there too. Like, I just think that when you have the key guy, and we know that these injuries aren't serious, which is good news. Like, we know, but Oscar will still work his way back in there, and Xavier when he's ready to go. But we know Kentucky's not going to look like Kentucky until Oscar Tshiebwe's on the floor, and we also know what Oscar Tshiebwe can do. Like, he's going to add points to Kentucky. He's also going to take away points from the other team because he's going to grab every single ball that comes off the rim. Like, we know the impact that he's going to have. And I feel like, but Cal also got to see what Kentucky looks like with him leading up to the season. So maybe that's why he's tempering expectations early. But this is a team that a year ago, and I think that this is a thing when you have a veteran team and they're older, I think your peak comes a little bit sooner than what it would when Kentucky's built around freshman heavy teams. Like, we know when they have a ton of freshmen and they have all the upside, we're always talking March. Well, March last year happened in January and early February.
Unfortunately, yes.
You don't want that to happen again this year. And I just think that that's kind of the risk you run when you have a veteran team like that is they kind of hit their stride early, and then you have injuries or something that kind of throws you off your rhythm. This team just needs to get healthy, stay healthy. I think they're going to be a good basketball team. I'm not concerned. I'm not putting a lot of stock in what I saw Sunday night because it's not Kentucky at full strength. I want to see Kentucky at full strength before I really start to judge them, especially when we get into November here and stuff and get into these exhibition games, get into the real games. Game planning starts becoming probably a bigger focus and things like that. I'm holding off on hitting the panic button after scoring 56 points in an exhibition. Like, I don't think that's going to happen again.
Yeah, Brian Stewart says this team is still trying to figure out how to play with each other. It will take them several weeks to really mesh as a team. Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Yep, it will. I think that, and that's where the Bahamas, I think that they were able to play freely a little bit more because they didn't have a ton of stuff in. We know that they had maybe 10 practices leading up to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Listen, I can tell you 10 practices is not a lot. Like, you can get some stuff in, but we also now know that they've got a lot more of their system in and their philosophy, the way they want to do things, which puts a lot more on these guys to have to think and have to kind of operate and maneuver and go through. Classes have started. There's a lot more factors into this, but I think that this will be a team that will get better and better each single time they take the floor. And look, this is why you play exhibition games. Louisville lost an exhibition game to Lenoir-Rhyne on Sunday. So I'm not going to complain about winning an exhibition game by 18 points. I'm sitting here, Lenoir-Rhyne plays at LMU. They went 10-18 last year and lost by like 20 plus to LMU. Like, it could be worse.
I mean, I was watching that game unfold, Shawn, and I was just baffled. I was like, this team is awful. I mean, Louisville's going to be very bad this year, Shawn.
It's not going to be good.
And it just goes back to what were they doing during the recruiting process of rounding out that roster. They have one point guard on the team, and everybody was kind of waiting for that like aha moment this offseason where they were going to land that premier point guard or that go-to guy. Oh, was DJ going to reclass and go play there, because they were kept striking out. It was like at some point they got to land somebody, and then they just never did. And now we're seeing a team of 13 wings and one point guard, and people are expecting, Louisville fans are like, what went wrong? How did we get to this point? It's like, if you look at the roster and how they were recruiting,
well,
you could see this from a mile away.
You could, and that's a team on Sunday that didn't just lose; they lost by 10. And
they were down by more than that. They were getting crushed.
Yeah, and you knew not even midway through the second half that Louisville wasn't winning the basketball game. At no point did I feel like Sunday Kentucky wasn't going to win the game.
No.
I was like, okay, this is ugly. This is boring. Like, this isn't going to sit well with fans, especially given the football loss on Saturday. Like, it's going to be one of those things that you're probably just wanting to throw up when you watch it. But it's a win. They won. That's the exhibition schedule. It does not matter. Like this one Thursday night, it does not matter. It's all about working in some extra lineups, maybe looking at some things that you probably won't even look at when you get to Monday night. And it's just about figuring out how you're wanting to play. It's figuring out roles. And we know that there's a couple of roles that will be set when Kentucky takes the floor on Monday. But for the most part, I think only 50% of it's set. I think that they're still trying to carve out roles and figure out, and Cal's going to give these guys opportunities to kind of seize control of what their job is and lose control of what their job is. Like, we know that it's gonna go back and forth. We know there's nothing like the early non-conference up and downs. Somebody plays well one game and then somebody, you don't see them for 3 games. Like, we know how that works. And then that's the kind of the beauty of building a basketball team. And I think that that's what Kentucky's doing right now.
Did you see Connor Riggs said Jacob Toppin's reaction at Louisville losing was hilarious? Did you see that video by chance?
I haven't seen that video.
So at Media Day, I can't remember who it was. Asked, might have been Matt Sack actually, said something to the effect of, who are you most looking forward to playing? Is there a team on your, on the schedule that you're most looking forward to playing? And he said, easily Louisville. That's a team that I'm very much looking forward to, blah, blah, blah. And I think Matt said something like, do you think they ducked Kentucky last season? Which they did, 100%. They did. They canceled that game specifically for that. Anyway, he said, "Do you think Louisville ducked you guys?" And Jacob was like, "Yep, absolutely. I think 100% think they ducked us." He was asked about the loss after the exhibition game on Sunday, and Jacob Toppin just didn't say anything. He just went. He shook his head. He had this smirk on his face, and it was like, "Oh man, that's a 100% classic." So yeah, he was trying not to laugh, but poor Louisville, man. I mean, they're. I love Kenny Payne too, so I think it's gonna be
it's gonna be a rough year.
I just hope they don't turn on him. I don't think it'd be very fair of Louisville fans to know what what the roster is and what he has had to overcome on the recruiting trail because of previous administrations and their nonsense and inabilities in various regards. He was put in a really crappy position to begin with. Now, do I think that he made some mistakes on the recruiting trail and not adding specific guys? Absolutely. But I think they should understand it's going to be an adjustment period 100% for him. And I just hope they're patient enough to get to that light at the end of their very dark, deep, long tunnel.
Yeah. I think patience with him is definitely needed. Need to give him some time, but I mean, yeah, that's a game at Rupp Arena that's probably not going to be
competitive.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. And I don't think there's anyone listening to this that would complain about that. If you can beat them by 40, you beat them by 40. If you can beat them by 41, you call timeout, you set something up, and you beat them by 41.
Whew. Anyway, we have the Kentucky State game on Thursday. The biggest storyline that I was excited for, Shawn, is taken away. I'm very upset about it. Chris Livingston's twin brother, Cordell, plays at Kentucky State, and I was very excited to see them matched up against each other. I asked Chris on Media Day about how excited he is for that, and it's his first time playing against his twin brother ever because they've always been on the same teams. He was like, "Yeah, I think." A couple of camp settings that we just got put on different teams while we were at the same camp, but never in a competitive setting have they been against each other. And unfortunately, we still won't be able to see them go against each other, Shawn, because I reached out to the Kentucky State people and they said that he is redshirting this year. Cordell at Kentucky State, he's not even playing. So we will not get the highly anticipated head-to-head battle between the Livingston twins, but so that part sucks. I know it's not something they were looking forward to.
Yeah, two Livingston boys playing in Kentucky though. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I was looking forward to that as well. So now what you're going into is you're looking at Kentucky State, and if you're John Calipari, you're probably circling some of those things that you struggled with in the exhibition opener, and you want to see those things go to another level. And you're looking for improvement right now. You're looking for some guys that maybe didn't play as well to play well, and the guys that played well to sustain it and continue playing well. That I think that's all you're looking for in the exhibition schedule is some consistency. That way, when you get to Monday, you're not trying to break things in game one. Mm-hmm. And that's what this exhibition schedule is about. That's why I never overreact to the exhibition schedule, because you can't. Like you're taking it one game at a time, and you're just trying to get ready for Monday, and then Monday's trying to get ready for the next game, and then before you play Michigan State here, 2 weeks from today, actually, the Champions Classic in Indianapolis, we know Kentucky's got to be ready to go. That's a Michigan State team that's played a private scrimmage against Tennessee in Thompson-Boling Arena, and what do you think about that, John Calipari talking about all the big time programs playing one another? And some things. I think that's something that would excite me a lot more than Kentucky facing Kentucky State or Missouri Western. Like, I think that's something that you would like to evaluate as a program. I mean, Tennessee beat Gonzaga by 19 points the other night.
Yeah, so Connor said he commented thoughts on Tennessee beating Gonzaga by 19. So throw your thoughts in there as well.
Well, it's one of those things, like I said, you don't overreact because I didn't watch that game. I don't know if you watched it. I'm not sure how many people paid to see it, but I'm sure some Tennessee and Gonzaga fans did. But that's a Tennessee team that I would expect to be very good. Like I said, you play Michigan State in your building on a Sunday with no one watching other than your team personnel, and then you go play Gonzaga. So who's ready to play when the season starts? Mm-hmm. Is it Tennessee? Is it Kentucky? Like that's what you look at, and I think that's the thing that you want to see. If Kentucky decides to do some things like that in the future, it only helps your program. to play quality teams. You partner, get with a team, and you go to them one year, they come to you one year, and you close the doors and just have your team personnel in there. That's where you get better. Not playing in these exhibition games. These exhibition games are just kind of getting your system and some things in there and kind of working yourself against another opponent. But anytime you can line up and play a quality opponent like Michigan State or Gonzaga or somebody like that, even when it doesn't matter, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm sure Mark Few is not concerned that his team lost by 19 points to Tennessee in a scrimmage. Like, because I'm assuming Mark Few did some things differently that he probably won't do in 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah, it's, and I appreciate Cal's openness about it after the game. He was asked, and he said, "Yeah, look, I understand the value that it brings to have these exhibitions at our house." And he said, "Look, it's about money." He was like, "I appreciate the, just from a respect standpoint for Division II programs, and how much it means to them for those buy games, because it is. I mean, financially, it does a lot for those programs, and it puts butts in seats at Rupp Arena. It's a put for jobs around the UK facilities and all that. I see the point on Kentucky's end why you would want to continue to host them at Rupp Arena with fans. However, from a competitive standpoint, Cal also made it very clear, I would much rather, he was like, and the exact quote was, "I love those Division II schools and helping out however I can, but I love this program more and I love my team more." And he said, he said, at the end of the day, I need to, put my team first, and it's a conversation that we need to have. He made it very clear that that's a change that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's saying the right thing. Like, you want to, I mean, that's the end goal here, is to make your team better and better prepared. And like, here's the thing. So, Cal's comments today talking about, some things here in the non-conference and how difficult it's going to be and stuff. Well, how much better prepared are you if you play a Michigan State or you play an elite program a couple of times in the preseason? You're probably more ready for that Champions Classic game. Like, right now, is Michigan State more geared up and ready to play a team like Kentucky, or is Kentucky more geared up to play a team like Michigan State?
I'd argue Michigan State's more prepared.
Yeah, just given when it comes to competition. That doesn't mean that Michigan State's the better basketball team. Kentucky may still win that game, but when it comes to being, repped and things like that, when you're going against elite guys that have the athleticism, the caliber that your guys have, that's only making you better.
Yeah, and I think the conversation of summer basketball as well, that's clearly going to be a change that happens moving forward, where we're going to see, instead of the 1 per 4-year foreign trip exhibition tours, that we're going to get every single summer August basketball, where it's going to be on SEC Network. Kentucky's going to play Tennessee. They're going to play Gonzaga. They're going to play Kansas. They're going to do scrimmages that are going to be live on television, and that's going to be kind of a new revenue opportunity for broadcasting. And I don't know if they're going to host have players in the arenas for them, but that's clearly going to be a new opportunity for preparation and things like that. We saw how much it helped this team with the Bahamas trip this year. We're going to get that kind of multiplied by 10 with getting actual real competition in those same months, and have it be a consistent thing every year. So very much looking forward to that. Appreciate Cal's comments on that, and acknowledging that it is necessary, because we are seeing all these other schools making it happen. So Kentucky certainly needs to do that as well. Let's start to wind down here, Shawn. Kentucky State on Thursday. What are you individually looking for? What are your kind of big takeaways and keys to the game for Kentucky? And just you said guys that were struggling, maybe that kind of turn things around for them, and guys who had success to sustain that. Who individually are you looking for to show out against the Thoroughbreds?
I'm looking at Antonio Reeves. I want to see him have a better offensive performance. Cason Wallace, some of those shots I was talking about, like it's the shots inside of 8, 9, 10 feet. Like, those are the ones that I want to see him connect on. I want to see CJ Frederick continue to build that confidence, not just in his game, but in his health. And
Absolutely.
continue to stay healthy and shoot the 3 ball. And Chris Livingston, I think I want to see him do some good things there and things as well. But I'm interested to see what the rotation's like with Lance and Ugana. Like I want to see after game one and you get some tape, what does Cal see on that film that maybe does Lance get more run? Does Ugana get more run? Like who are you going to use when it comes down to, let's say there's no Oscar Sheboy for some reason, like who are you going to use in game one? Like, or what's the role going to be behind Oscar if Oscar is available for game one? And then how does Kentucky play for 40 minutes with no Xavier Wheeler? Like, what is the backcourt rotation like? You would think you'd get some lineups now that feature an Antonio Reeves and a CJ Frederick together. And that's what I want to see. I want to see the two shooters on the floor creating some space offensively with Jacob Toppin at the 4, Kaysen at the 1, and then whoever you go with there at the 5. I think that's the thing that I'm looking for the most is just what does Cal decide to do, because it's crunched. You have no Oscar. You have no Wheeler. It's forcing you to play some guys more minutes than what you would. Does Adu Thiero take advantage of that opportunity and get more run and look like the Adu Thiero we saw in the Bahamas and the Blue-White game? Because I think that's a guy, if you put him on the floor, he's going to do good things. I think he's going to carve out a role on this team, and maybe this is where it starts.
I mean, Adu has been sensational. He was really, really good. And like you said, Cal's biggest argument with him is that he just couldn't shoot. And now every setting that we're seeing him, he's knocking down shots. He went 1 for 2 in this one. I think he made a couple shots from deep in the Blue-White game. It's like if he's now making threes on top of the other physical drives and drawing fouls and, getting the rebounding and steals, getting opportunities in transition, all of those things that he was already doing really well. If he's now making shots on top of that, it's like, what excuse do you have to not play this kid?
Yep. I think that this is a game that he's got to get north of 20 minutes because I want to see him play. Like, I want to see what he does in extended minutes, and I want to see what that stat line looks like if he's playing 21, 22 minutes. Because I think that he's a guy that can help you with his body. He's going to rebound his position. He's going to guard his position. We've seen him get to the rim. And the biggest takeaway for me is I've seen it now for 6 games, if you count the Blue-White game. He will make an open shot. And that was the one question mark surrounding his game coming to Kentucky that we didn't know about was, is this kid a good enough shooter to play? Is he going to play immediately? Is this a 2 or 3 year guy kind of building his way into the rotation? Every time I've seen him, I think he looks like one of the better guys on the roster in the backcourt. Like there were times the other day that I thought he looked better than Xavier.
I mean, the physicality, the aggression, the will to win, and just kind of throwing his body. He plays with such reckless abandonment, Shawn. That's like, it's just oddly refreshing to see a kid go in there and to say, I'm going to go make plays. Like, I know I'm going to make mistakes. I know that, I'm not going to make every shot that I take, but you will never question, the effort and the will to win that I bring to the table. And that's why I think he's going to play. I mean, I just do.
His size helps him a ton. Like, it helps him a ton. And not just his height and his arms and his length, it's his body size in general. Like, he's strong.
210. Yeah.
He's one of those Memphis guys that Cal had.
Yes.
Just that's what he looks like to me. And a guy that as he continues to develop and grow into that body even more. And that's another thing that stands out to me, not just about Adu, but Jacob Toppin. Jacob Toppin doesn't even look like the same human being in a Kentucky basketball jersey as he did 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. The development of the bodies and stuff in this program, and even more recent in the last 6 or 7 months, has been incredible. Like, these guys, CJ Frederick, they just look stronger and healthier. And I think that's another thing that's helping CJ right now is that lower body is probably the strongest it's ever been.
And a note on that, because I meant to say this earlier when we were talking about CJ. We talked to him after the game and, asking about health and just, how do you feel? Hopefully it won't be long before we don't even have to ask you these questions anymore because you are so healthy and things like that. He said, it's really weird. I feel like today, talking that game, he said, I felt like today was the easiest thing I've done since I've gotten here. And he was like, because
that's a big one.
He said, because practice is so much harder and it's so much more physical and it's so much more back and forth sprinting and, working on agility and working on all these different things, mobility and all that. He's like, when I'm in the game, it's not that much movement. It's not that much, quick turn, left, right, up and down. He's moving. He's constantly moving, looking for shots. We saw him do that, but it's a different type of moving instead of, the quick lateral back and forth stuff. And the fact that he is saying it almost feels like we got past the difficult part with him, just how difficult practices, the offseason work leading up to the season and all of that. We got past that. Now the head-to-head scrimmaging is going to die out during the regular season. It's going to be just more, walkthrough based things and things like that. So I think all things considered, this is all good news that he's feeling as comfortable as he is, and he's going out of his way to say, yeah, this game was easier than anything that I've done so far, and he looked as good as he did doing it.
Yep. Every time he took a shot the other day, I thought it was going in. And, I mean, the numbers kind of reflect that. It almost did go in every single time. But his willingness to defend, his ability to take care of the ball and value possessions, I thought he moved very well the other night on the defensive end. I thought he moved very well in transition. He looks healthy, and I think that that's a massive thing for this team is to get that wing score out there that can stretch you out defensively, but also value possessions and guard his position as well.
Yeah, Cal called him a special player, and I can't disagree. I mean, he defends, he makes the right reads, he passes well, he runs the floor well, he always moves. And then he's one of the best shooters in college basketball. So all things considered, a whole lot to like about CJ. Very excited for him to be back on the floor. Going through a couple of the comments, Titanium Titan, do you think Wheeler will be back for Gonzaga? Absolutely, I do. There's another question earlier about Oscar. Sergeant Wu says, is Oscar playing the opener? Yes, I've heard that he will be. He will not miss any games. He told us at Media Day. He said at Media Day, I will absolutely be back by then, but just also hearing from people behind the scenes, heard nothing but positives that he'll be back.
It'd be interesting to see how many minutes he plays in that opener. Like that's where I was getting at earlier about rotation wise is, who plays some minutes that Oscar might have to give up early. Because to me, the main thing is to have Oscar ready to go for champions.
For sure.
That's where you want him. You want to get him in there, but you want him really ready to go that night they play Michigan State.
Yeah. And even if it's, just limited minutes, get his feet wet, legs under and things like that. I think that's a great idea for him to make sure he's ready for that. Michigan State's always a physical, tough team. I think that's going to be what they are this year as well. So you definitely want to get him ready for that opportunity. Make sure that we didn't miss any other comments. Alan, I think we need more big, thick guys inside. Skinny and fast is great, but we need both. I think Oscar is clearly 6'9", 260-ish pounds, 7% body fat. I think he's just fine in that regard. Ugo, 6'11", 7-foot-ish, 210-ish pounds. I think he's filling out very nicely. And then Blair, I think he's grown. Cal kind of put it on him to be 240 pounds. He's already up to 233, Sean. So I like how Lance looks as well. It definitely doesn't bother me as much for sure. A couple questions earlier on about DJ Wagner. Don't want to get into a whole bunch of recruiting stuff because we are running late and we do got to get out of here. DJ will be committing during the early signing period as of right now. Still all things Kentucky. I've heard that they're just kind of working out the logistics of all of that and getting it planned, but nothing but good news in that regard. And I am expecting that to be I don't think it'll be by next show that we do, Sean, but maybe the one after that. We'll most certainly be talking about that as a post-signing day thing. So very much looking forward to that. I think that wraps up all of the questions that we had, and perfect right at the hour mark. So let's go on and get out of here, Sean. Where can fans find your work?
Fans can find my work at gobigbluecountry.com, and they can follow me on Twitter at GBBCountry.
Find me on Twitter as well at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Reach out to me via email at jpilgrim@KentuckySportsRadio.com. With that, we'll be back next Tuesday right here on the KSR YouTube page at maybe 8 p.m., maybe 7 p.m. I don't know. We'll figure that out, but I'll keep you all updated. We'll be back right here. We'll see you then.